Sure. Yes. Same time.
Coordinate today's function or event with the hope that we can get things moving in the right direction. We have a few speakers. Higher voice again. Now it's better. Much better then. Yeah, welcome all of you. I was saying that you are the main persons the discussion is going to focus around, and we hope that at the end of the day we will achieve what we wanted to achieve. We'll talk about time. During the welcome, Prani will deal with that. And
we pray for peace and harmony in our beloved country.
Did welcome, I think, others to a smaller committee, made the welcome here. But we want to thank him, before I call upon him to speak, for getting us together. And by trying to get, I think, what we call the youth.
Namaskaram to all. I hope you can hear me at the back. There was a huge call for Hindu unity, and of getting many on board, and let us look forward to having this Hindu unity, a united South African Hindus. Currently, we like groups. Our Dharma has respect mainly for accessing our roots. It's important for us to know our roots. Many people may say, why do we need an OCI? Well, let me tell you the words of my uncle, Bhakti Singh, who said, South Africa is our first from also accessing this OCI. There are many, many issues and many problems we go across when we come through that on the agenda. To all, thanks Pranil, thanks for those warm words of welcome. Then we're going to take, I'm not too sure whether you've had tea already, but there will be lunch served thereafter. But let me just capture what Professor Garaj said this morning in one of the chat groups, and I think it's captured absolutely correctly. He says, "Dear Pranil, congratulations. When the University Hindu Center project was mooted, it was done to bring the Hindus living in South Africa. When he visited the university in 1994, many, many months, he says, you have worked hard to cherish our dream. I fully support all your efforts and will always help to foster the project. We needed this initiative in this country. Professor Dilip Karaj. I support that, and I'm sure many of you here this morning support it as well. Okay, so this is the launch, this is the inaugural meeting, a much needed one. Our first speaker is a lady that lectures in the health sciences, both at this institution and at the University holding all our medical students together and hoping that they can pass through our hands, but one of many. Irene Megraj will just share a few thoughts with us on this sector within the community.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Pranil, for giving me this opportunity. So I wasn't expecting to actually say anything, but I've just been thought to just give a few ideas on what this committee could actually put together. So these were some of the points that just came up as I was thinking about it. So if you look at the health sector, there are various issues, the first of which is outreach. So many of you know of community organizations, and many of these community organizations are always looking for people to do talks and stuff like that. We have student scholarships. Many of us know students that require money and funding, and as you know, we have lots of expertise in genomics and genetics and so on. So education awareness campaigns can be aimed at schools. So as you know, drug abuse is a huge problem at school. Family thinking about is nutrition, healthcare, hydration. Hydration might just seem like something not important, but it's critical. It's with regards to adults in that forum that we can come together to actually help adults with diabetes and hypertension and so on. Many of us know it actually reaches that stage. Who are the group of individuals that can assist them, who can come together quickly. So he's played a massive role, and my dear friend Shavana Mohangi is also coming down. So these people have played a great role to actually go and how to actually approach this. So luckily we networked enough to get all these individuals together. So to assist people that need assistance. So basically what I see this committee as doing is putting together key people in various sectors that we need to flesh out today as being important, and we can quickly then either raise funds or assist these people in order to help them. Just to give you a little bit of my background, so I lecture at medical school and at Westville campus. And one of the biggest problems we're seeing is that people do not have sufficient career advice, they don't have sufficient funding, even amongst this sector as well. It's not as affluent as you think it is. So it's not just a disadvantaged community, but also students from this community that come with a whole host of problems. We also have mental health problems. People ask me, what is the way that we should approach mental health issues. So there's various, for example, at UKZN, we have, colleagues that have protocols that address this, and there's a step-by-step approach to mental health conditions in students that require help. So basically, you know what, all of us live in our little silos and pockets, but this is an opportunity for us to all come together, share our ideas and help each other. And also, network for ourselves and network for the various people that require help. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Maureen. Much appreciated. One of my friends walked down, and that's Dr. Singh. And nice to see you here. So just to complement that, I'm going to give you a chance to also say something, particularly with the OCI, and also from the medical profession. But before that happens, I want to get the speakers were speaking on some of the topics that affect our community. And here in particular, when we had the July 2021 riots, what affected me personally and some of my colleagues and friends in the sporting fraternity was that if there was this interaction of our communities with the different other communities making up our South African bigger community, then maybe that too could have been averted. So we have to, I think, now play a major role by getting this social cohesion together through the sports structure. With that said, I want to call upon Jay Reddy. Jay Reddy, I know I'm taking you by surprise, but I know you can do it. He's an attorney in Durban. He's also the treasurer of the South African Indoor Football Association, which is the futsal. We're affiliated to SAFA, and he will speak very briefly on that, because this is going to be one of the other sectors within the Hindu community that will take off. Jay, please come forward. I think you can do better.
Thank you, Bhubi. It is indeed a huge surprise. So if it's a bit incoherent, pardon me. And there are many more people in this hall. I've met a few of them as we came in, who are much more qualified, I think, to speak broadly on sport. I've had many more years of engagement than I did. But let me just try and share some thoughts, as surprising as it is. I think most of you here may be exposed to recently the group that was set up, particularly the Hindu Sport Focus Group. I think we need to just contextualize where all of this sits in the broader South African society. This certainly must not be a focus on exclusivity. It should be a focus on cohesion. It should be bringing together the different structures within the Hindu community that are focused on sport, to bring them together to share with the broader society of which we are an integral part. We are not divorced from that. To share and grow that experience, to create opportunities. I think that we very sorely need in this country, because there is no one component that is going to bring a solution to the multitude of problems. But this component, and Hinduism in particular, has a very strong moral fiber. It ought to have. And it should be a constant reminder to us all. This thought of where do you come from is extremely important. It is something that I think we are losing, not with a view to recognizing your different skin colors or cultural differences, but losing from within, intrinsically, what is the moral fiber and where does it start from? And with that moral fiber, there are many other aspects of your being that are important. And I will focus just at this point on the issue of sport. So sport, as you know, has a long, colorful history in this country. The community, the Hindu community in particular, the involvement in sport has a long, long history. Many of those that are very interested in sport in particular would have seen, if you are on social media like Facebook, etc., the history of non-racial sport, SACOS references to the, I'm sure you would have seen a lot of photographs and other reminders of the historical past. A lot of it around football, but of course golf, cricket, in all of the courts. And there are people that have made very significant contributions over the years, but to a large extent have been lost to the development of our community as a sport powerhouse, and also to give opportunity to younger people, to those that have the talent. There doesn't appear to be much for them to do. So one of the conceptual ideas of this gathering would be to look at how one can harness that. How could we bring together a group interested in sport through Hinduism, through the moral fiber, to look at structures that can afford opportunities to those young people within your organizations, etc., that are identified that could be given those opportunities. So with sport, there have been many years of struggle. Like everything else in this country, we have been engaged in struggle for centuries, and the struggle continues. It hasn't stopped. And the big struggle now is to utilize whatever resources are available and to expose these to the broader community for their benefit. In the sport arena, we are trying to ensure that, particularly from the soccer side of things, to try and get the organizations resuscitated, to foster a greater interest in sport, to make opportunities, to participate at international and local level, to thereby create opportunities for everyone. So we can talk, and this is not a lecture. So hopefully those people that are interested in sport in particular will come together and will share ideas, and a committee could be established to look at the way forward. With those words, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake. You can take your seat. I think your wife will be very happy. You've done well with the surprise that I gave you. Thank you, Jake. Thanks very much for that. Dr. Singh, just to supplement the health introduction of one of the committees. Come forward, I'll give you 2 minutes. Thank you. Give him a round of applause, Dr. Singh.
Before I start, let me tell you the history of the Center for Sport. In 1981, when I joined UEW, so you know my age now, I'm 60. So when I joined UEW, I was president of the Hindu Student Association. I envisaged to build a Hindu center which would be standing on today. And we had this committee from 1971. They used to meet once a year, give 1,000 rand. I think when we joined, it was only about 82,000. Well, a lot of money those days, huh? To buy 2 S classes, that is to put it in perspective. So we met the rector, and the rector told us, you know what, this is going to be the only university in the world where we can have a Christian center, a mosque, and a Hindu center. So in 1981, Saudi Arabia gave 250,000 rand. To put it in perspective, it was $250,000 in the mosque. was built in 6 months. But we were really battling to build this. I was lucky in 1981, 82, 83, we tried to build it, but I can see there's still a lot of refurbishments. It brings a lot of nostalgia to me because we were slightly responsible. When I left UEW, this was only built in the late 80s. And I see still there's no aircon, so everybody take the hit if there's any air conditioning engineers here, because that time it was going to cost 80,000 rand to put I think 240,000 BTU aircon. So there's still no aircon, so take the hit. Just to come back to you why we should have the unity in the Hindu community and the community at large. My 3 children went to a Jewish school. And I promise you, when I see spirit among them, it's amazing. Just to give you an example, my son lost his best friend's father. He was the technical engineer for SAA. And that's why I never was SAA to his crash, because he was really a very good employee. So why I'm telling you this, we all went for the funeral, we went for his bar mitzvah, etc. And at the funeral, there was the prominent, I don't mention names, one of the top Jewish guys in South Africa. And he called the family, and because we were such close friends, we were allowed into the room. And he says, "Ma'am, do you need anything?" He says, "No, I've got a bond of 2.1 million. He says, "The bond is clear." And that's how the Jewish community worked. And when you get your husband's insurance money, you can pay us back. I don't think the Hindu community is capable of doing that. So this is where we need the unity. The second incident was, there was this one guy in school. He was really not the academic type. He was the only one in the class to get a diploma pass, because actually they did get 100% pass. But he was an extremely good chef. So what he did was he became a cook. And he needed 2 million rand to open his restaurant in Consular. And below, the Jewish community gave him 2 million rand to go to the restaurant on one condition, because we're close to the Jewish community, on one condition, that he pays back the 2 million rand without interest, and he contributes to the Jewish contribution of Islam. And lo and behold, today he drives, as I tell my son, he's the only one without a degree in the class, but he's the richest. So you don't need a degree to be the richest. So I always tell him, see, he works smart, he didn't work hard. So coming from the health perspective, we need to have this unity, because what happens is we find that we lack a lot of things as Hindus. Yet we've got the potential. That's the saddest thing. Like, I'll give you a good example. Most communities have the hospitals. If you look at it, I was born in St. Edmunds. St. Edmunds was a mission hospital. We have Amala Al-Qadi Hospital, which was built by a certain community. So, but unfortunately, we as community, although we have the potential, we haven't lived up to this. So we must start moving this. Like, I'll give you a good example. The Ramakrishna has a medical camp every Sundays, and we contribute to the medical camp. The Divine Life always had everything. We usually go to all the Jodos. We pick up all these, about 10, 15 of us, and sacrifice certain Saturday morning, Sunday mornings. We go there, we help the community, and everything is there. We surprisingly, we get good medicines, etc. Similarly, we also do that for the Divine Life also does it, but it's not done in a big scale. So what we should do is, as medical people, we should all get together, and we should all try and form what I would say, a community organization where if people can't have help, then they can seek help from us. I know my 2 minutes is up, but what I'm trying to say to you, we've got this potential, we are meeting here. Don't let this be like the temple. We started in 71, only finished in the 80s. The mosque was built in 6 months. So let us start moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Singh, for giving us some of the history of this building and what we can achieve, what we can do efficiently. I think these days, the sector speaking, motivating us as to why the sports sector, the event. You've also got 2 minutes because we have a number of speakers. Thanks, come forward.
But I am glad. Let's keep that spirit going. You're a doctor, essentially you're running a small business, or a big business as the case may be. And when we look at the Indian flag, and at the center you see the chakra, the wheel, and those that need help, not always business help, but we could also use it as an opportunity to help in a charitable sense. So I believe that can be a very important capstone for this. And of course, this this doesn't detract from our religious belief.
Om Namah Shivaya. After I've said all of that, we still have as African in our passport and in our ID document. Today, they disenfranchise us. Our government disenfranchises us by saying we are Indian. We are not. We're not Indian. We are proudly of Indian heritage. You can't take that away from us. You can't. We are of Indian heritage. We are of Indian origin. You are African. One look, you are African. One look at us and they know we are from another. Also, let me take the opportunity whilst I'm on the subject of Pranil. Ladies and gentlemen, a job well done. India is the motherland of our ancestors who came here in 1860 to 1911. South Africa is our motherland, the current generations that followed since 1911. This is our motherland. We know of no other motherland. So, after having fought the good fight and having succeeded, today you engineer laws against us. So one day I said at the temple, no amount of Navagara or Gara players will help our children get into university, or get a job, or get a promotion. Guru, I am very sorry I say it like that. But that's a fact. Because the laws of the country mitigate against that. The fellows that we call brothers and sisters are today calling us Charos and Indians. It's disheartening, disappointing. It brings us down as a community. So Dispele and I, sometimes in 2005 or 6 or 7, can't remember when, but Ila Gandhi nominated myself, Dispele and Shah Maharaj to represent the Indian community at the Freedom Park Trust. This is a monument that was built to recognize the history and the efforts of all of Africa, and in particular South Africa. In there, the three of us met a General Masondo. General Masondo was very ill, old, shuffling to the table, said to us, I want you to know, there were more Indian prisoners in Robben Island per capita than African people. More of our brothers and sisters were in Robben Island serving as political prisoners, per capita, remember, than our African brothers and sisters. We were not part of the struggle, we were in the struggle. Many of you have parents, cousins, relatives, friends. UDW was a citadel of the struggle. Many things originated here. Okay, maybe these fellows were young then and they had all the energy back in the day. But if it wasn't for you, many other things would not have happened. UDF, part of its birth can be brought to this particular institution. So, today when you tell us we'd have to take second-class citizenship without having to use the word. But Malema will go on TV and say, in order to save Eskom, can all the engineers who are whites, coloreds, and Indians come back and help us? Don't ask for payment. That time there's no employment equity. But for other jobs there's employment equity. The reason you are doing that is because you are looking for a soft target and you want to blame us. And we are a soft target, particularly the Indian community, break it down further, the Hindu community. Let us say this with all clear conscience. The Muslim community are very strong. They are very much like what our chairperson, what the doctor said about the Jewish community. Very, very strong because they are united. They are. Look at the positions that they hold in different levels of society, from government right the way down to humanitarian organizations. If you want to build a mosque, it takes 6 months. If you want to build a temple, 20 years is a bit short, right? So Chair, I beg your indulgence in terms of some time. and say, let me tell you what we do, which is wrong. All of us sitting in this audience here will preach unity. We must be united as a community. The first thing you do is you talk about tamlos and umbrellas. First fault line. But thankfully our children are intermarrying now. You can't tell which is which. The Khalid community didn't grow. But that's the first fault line. I can tell you from a position of strength, or we can tell you from a position of strength, that at the Sri Mariamman Temple, there is no such thing as language barriers or language issues. Everybody, that's their home. All linguistic groups find it easy to come there because we don't prescribe. We don't have a congregational type of audience or grouping at the temple. It is your home. Built in 1962 onwards, because the first group that landed in Montesquieu was in 1962, not 1862, not 1860. We, all of us sitting here today, are beneficiaries of our parents' hard work, tenacity, blood, sweat, tears, and slavery. And yet we can't find it amongst ourselves to be united, firstly as a grouping of Hindus, and then as Indians. I use the word in inverted commas so that we get the point across. Because earlier I said we are all Africans. But our community cannot see past that word. Sometimes you don't even believe it when you utter the word unity. You yourself don't believe it. So how is it going to happen? The other thing is, we all, many of us sitting here, revered the African National Congress. We did. I think many of us, me included, can't say the same anymore. And I was the past chairperson of my branch a few months ago. We can't. Because of all the malfeasance you see, the corruption that you see, the mismanagement that you see, there are educationists here. If we got our education right, you get your health system right. If you get your education right, you'll produce good quality workers and all business people. If you get your education right, the biggest thing that affects us now, we've got a security boss here, Glenn. He'll tell you, the biggest thing that worries us as a community is our safety. We can't leave our families at home and go to work or go to any other place because we are unsafe. And with the unemployment rate reaching the levels that it does, you're going to see more of that. Twice my house was broken into and they stole the water pipes. That is complex. So, what needs to happen, Chair, is that as a community, we don't have a real political voice. We don't. We have tiny, minute parties that purport to want to represent us. Lo and behold, the Raj will be rejoicing in up there when I tell you the last voice we had for the Indian community was Rajbansi. Back in the days of the NIC, we had them. We did. They were freedom fighters extraordinary. But as they went into government, as they went into business, we cannot hear their voices as loudly as it was before 1994. You can't. I mean, Praveen Gordon is one of the most astute politicians that we had in our ranks. We had Ravi Pillai until recently resigned. I can't see any other Indian getting into the KZN cabinet. After Praveen Gordon goes in the national cabinet, can you see anybody else getting in? If you say Indian, there may be a Muslim person getting in, because they are organized. You and I are not. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to have a strong political voice. In Phoenix, we have about 5 small parties, each vying for seats in council. Nobody is at a national level, not just yet. And what they want to do is secure themselves a position to get paid. And when you ask them, please can you help me with this? Yeah, they help you with your death certificate, birth certificate. Ask them to get you a job. They can't because the Employment Act prevents them from doing anything. Ask them to get your child into university, they can't. So I'd like to say to my leaders in the African National Congress, we are not your stepchildren. We are not your stepbrothers or sisters. We are Africans just like you. Why would you accord us a separate status that takes us to before 1994? Because you mismanaged this country and you're looking for votes in 2024, and this is one way of saying to your voting community, look, I'm trying to look after you. I'm trying to arrange your jobs. What jobs? The job market is shrinking, Lamin. So whatever promises they make to our African brothers and sisters, they lie. It is as serious as that. One lie leading to another lie. You listen to a group of people, they tell you there should be no problem with this group. It has enough generation power. You listen to another group, he says go green. Green is very expensive, am I right? Going green is very expensive. You and I can't afford it. But you have the third set who says there's any number of thefts that are taking place, particularly in Mpumalanga and Johannesburg, and they drive the G-Wagon, Porsche and Ferrari. They drink Johnny Walker Blue every other day. In fact, they are pouring it and burning money just for fun. How crazy is that we can't even afford to pay our electricity bill? So I said to a colleague of mine, a comrade of mine who was chairing a maze in Bizo in 148 in Phoenix. If you take the pensioners, husband and wife, the pension that they earn, they can't pay the water and lights bill. They can't pay for food. They can't pay for transport, let alone clothing and other amenities that they would need to have a normal life. And then the rates get pushed up. Those people are dead before they start the month financially. But we struggle and we battle through our network of families. Should it be like that? And then they say we have a caring city and a caring government, and that it has all these systems in place to help you with your backlog of payments and so on. And your budget is running into billions. Our city is now in administration. But let's also warn ourselves. Bringing another political party like the Democratic Alliance doesn't mean there'll be any trade difference. It doesn't mean that. That party, born out of the National Party, only needs the Indian community for its numbers. Ask yourself if there's anybody of any serious, substantial position within the DA that comes from the Indian community. None. So we are voting for them too. So they play on our fears, and they use the scare tactics very nicely, and all of you say, better this devil than that devil. Chairperson, some of the most brilliant minds come from within our community. Some of the most brilliant minds come from within our community in different facets of our lives. How did we come to this level? The best business houses come from within our community. The best doctors come from our community. The best lawyers come from our community. The best of the best teachers. Remember, that's the most noble cause or career in anybody's life. It's even in our scriptures. Mata, Pita, Guru, Deva. Our teachers, all of us went through teachers. Today they are waiting for their packages. Hey, thank you very much, sir. I'm out of the system in a few years. I'd rather take my pension now before it goes somewhere else. You've heard the statement, right? We all have these talks around the dinner table. And then we get accused of racism. Some of us are. Let's not shy away from that. Some of us are. We have hectic discussions at the dinner table, using some very harsh language. We must do away with that. and form one united South Africa. When you give one step on one cheek, you give another one on the other side. I think we must change from that one. Really, we must change from that. It is time, ladies and gentlemen. This was a different scenario, we live in a different time now. What we need to do is, and of course we will meet with the committee here, is we need to form a party that will represent our voices. We are 1.5 million in the country, give and take. But we're not only in Durban or in KZN, we are throughout the country. 50% of us, that's 750,000, if my math is correct, 750,000, if my math is correct, are voting public. The other 750,000 is below the age of 18. What can 750,000 do on its own? In some towns you'll have the swing vote. So we'll have to cut and shape and form a partnership with our African brothers and sisters, but with us leading the process, so that we don't get sidelined and marginalized every time. We don't get pushed out every time. It's time to stand up. I'm in the presence of the Guru and some other people here, I can't use some French words, and show our mettle, and grab the bull by the horns, and say, if our parents got us to here, where you can build a Hindu center at a university, they would never have dreamt of that in 1860 onwards. You made that dream come true, you and your colleagues. When we built the temple at Montechko, the initial temple would have been built with shrubs. When they saw the Mount, the Puttu, right? Grass, and narkat, and bamboo. Today we have an edifice there that is a multi-million rand building in place of Mother Mariam. We have a murti there for Lord Shiva that holds its own anywhere in the world. They would never have dreamt of that. What they dreamt of was two things. One, education, education, education. Two, learn English so that we can master the language of the slave master. So that we can beat the system, not the white man. We can beat the system. And we did, only for some of those gains to be reversed. So it's up to you, all of you sitting here today, when you take back this message, either this fellow was rambling on, or indeed, we need to take up the cudgels, unite as a community, not only the Hindus, Christians and Muslims, and anybody else, and with our African brothers and sisters like-minded. By the way, they are Kafal too. They're valid. Really. One t-shirt, one grocery empire, and KFC Streetwise 2 doesn't cut it anymore. Doesn't. You know, after the unrest, we were taking food from Food for Life at River Range, vegetable meals, solid vegetable meals. Our African neighbors refused to eat because they said we were poisoning it. How deep that ran, the mistrust. These are the people living in Phoenix. We can tell you that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, anybody can spin what they want. Fact of the matter is we are facing the battle head on. It's time for us to stand up and take charge. And you must take charge from Margate on the south to Golera on the north. And to the border in, Van Rieden's Pass in KZN, if that's a border town. We need to organize ourselves every inch of the way, like we did previously. We are leaderless. We don't have anybody that we can say is our leader anymore. We should now create that platform for those people to come forward. And only you can do it. Only you. Don't sit back and say, hey, I don't give a lot of speech. It was nice. It shook me up for a short while. And when you go home, nothing evaporates. It has happened. When Mandela came to Phoenix, people were being trampled to go and see him. Every single one of you holds the name Nelson Mandela in high reverence. Am I right? Many of you did not vote for him in 1994. The National Party got the bulk of Phoenix and Chatsworth. Yep. Today that same National Party is the DA. This is a man we revered as God, Nelson Mandela. My mom had the good fortune of putting a garland around him. Today, if she knows her grandchildren, oh, she's late now, but if she knows her grandchildren has a master's in technology and can't get a job because he's Indian, you should clap. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we would like for our brothers here to please connect with you. I didn't expect it. I'll be very honest when you first came to this. I didn't expect it to grow to the level that it did. And it did, and you are here. Now all we have to do is make sure that we get the word to every single person within the Indian community and then the Indian community, so that we may stand up and make our voices heard. You owe it to your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, if not for yourself. Thank you very much.
We are all affected by what's happening around us. Thanks for capturing all of that in 2 minutes. We promised to have another speaker on this political issues, and Silan talked about the late Rajbansi, that he must be rejoicing upstairs. So somebody to represent the minority front, and I really mean it, 2 minutes, yeah, we'll listen to you. So I think representing is Viresh Bana, please come forward. Please give Viresh I think the embassy, somebody from the embassy is on their way, and we will be talking about the OCI and other things as well. Viresh, up to you.
Thank you very much. Respected Guru, members of the organizing committee, a very good afternoon to the audience. Firstly, thank you very much for giving us, the Minority Front, an opportunity on this platform to voice our views on the launch of a united Hindu movement. Mr. Archie obviously covered a lot of pertinent issues there regarding what's affecting our communities. It is true, 100%. I come from the corporate background also. I see it happening every day. And there's much more coming on the 1st of September with the Employment Equity Bill. We've been hearing about it. If you go into detail, you'll find that it has an impact at a level that it affects us on a geographical basis. Meaning that previously they would look at it holistically, from a national point of view, if it's a corporate, and now it's going down to a geographical point in terms of a regional level. So it has a major impact. It will affect future employment. It will reduce the quotas that we have at the moment. It will have a major impact on our employment of our people. So from the minority front point of view, there's a couple of points that we would like to bring forward today. Firstly, we would like and suggest that a task team be set up at every provincial level so that we can collaborate with each other and so that we have a structure of who's out there in the market, who wants to be part of this organization, who are the people that are active, and where will it take us as a united front. Currently, the KZN legislature has an interfaith symposium which gives the minority front an opportunity to address religious and cultural needs. So this is a resource that we can tap into. Mrs. Rajbansi is currently a member of that committee. So we can use that resource to tap into and work from there. There are currently, as Mr. Archie pointed out, many political organizations who claim to represent the Indian people, or as mentioned in Phoenix, there's about 5 parties, but they, as Mr. Archie mentioned, that they are for their own purpose. They get voted in and then they forget about you for the next 5 years, which I agree with, but we must also be wary as an organization that we must look at who are these people, what are their intentions when they do arrive at your door for your vote, and then what happens thereafter after the elections. There are also existing faith-based political parties, especially with the other religious organizations. And I think it's time now that we also suggest from an Hindu side, we should have or form a traditional party, a Hindu traditional party, or tap into or lobby existing parties that are available. I thank Mr. Archie there for recognizing the Raj. Obviously he was a size 11 shoe, he used to use a size 11 shoe. I don't think I can get into that size, but yes, definitely his work has been recognized at a point in time, but I think it's time now that people who chat about the history will understand where Mr. Rajvanshi and his party and his politics came from in the late 80s, and what happened in 94 when he formed the Minority Front. We also suggest that Hindu workers at the current employment form a trade union. They can, any number of people, Mr. Gopal, can assist on that matter, where they can form a union and it can be, their voices can be heard. So it can start off as little as 10, 15 members. As long as there's a voice in a committee that will be recognized and heard. And put pressure for any of your demands, especially on the employment equity and the quota-based and the merit-based work. You can have a workplace forum and then you can voice your opinion there. Currently, I'm glad this platform is taking place because politics, I've visited many organizations, I'm talking about the temples itself, and we find that some temple management, they find that they must leave politics aside. They don't invite politics into the temple for some of their own personal reasons, or whatever it is, but it's time now they should sort of mutually work together, and they will find that there are benefits that will come off that. So we say temple should transform, it's quite urgent, and in terms of the services offered, and it can obviously offer the grooming of youth. Well, that's what we want. If I look around us, on average, we're probably about 40 to 55 years of age here. And I know we're trying to tap into the youngsters, especially from university level upwards. Apart from the existing business chambers that are present, and I'm sure Mr. Gopal will bear with me, we should look at taking advantage of all other programs by government, and specifically if we can look at forming a Hindu women business chamber, because women are in the forefront in the Hindu community, and that is one of the points that should be taken into account, and we look forward to participate in that also. Apart from that, a youth chamber forum to look into, as Sir mentioned there are many professionals that are coming out of universities and they can be part of this movement. Remember, the youth movement can go up to 35 years of age. Apart from that, we're looking at independent business houses or somebody, a body that can be formed where you can recognize the religious aspect of meals, like the shudder and any other labeling that's required. So it can be recognized and people can be informed of what's in these products. So it's quite important that we don't just buy anything off the shelf. That's in keeping with our faith. In terms of schools, we're hoping that there's a chain of Hindu-based schools be created so that this will require the help of all obviously retired teachers and improve on what the status of the mother tongue language at the moment is in schools. We know most of them have been culled at schools and it's very difficult to bring them back. So Eastern languages is one of the things that can assist if there's a Hindu school created, and many Hindu schools, like the Westwood school that's currently. There are two goal-based programs that are currently happening and which would benefit every Hindu. It will provide incentives and employment, but we must obviously participate in it. So the NGOs, the FBOs, the PBOs, the CBOs, all these non-profit organizations, and the South African National Development Plan, which has only 6 years left as per the target of 2030. So we must have a platform so we can contribute to these SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So Mrs. Judge Wansi unfortunately was not well today, that's why she's not present, but she has sent her best email, and she always have maintained that she's available at any point in time for any communication, and she's fully supportive of the United Movement, and we wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Village. It's now 12:20. We've gone on for some time. I'm going to take some comments, suggestions from the floor. I haven't heard a woman speak, apart from Irene earlier, and some of the youth in the audience. So think about it, and then there's Dash Sin who was with us. I'm going to ask him to round up because this morning before we started, he had a very good plan in place, and I'll ask him to round up. If he misses anything, we'll try and capture it, because at the end of the day, we want to get a steering committee together so that we can take some decisions here, because I think you're usually representative of the Hindu community. Okay, anyone for the takers? Because yes, this was not built in. I remember the girls' hostel opposite you. HSC. Thank you.
Namaskar everyone, I'm J.C. Sula. My question to the committee is that, first of all, thank you for putting this together. And, when our forefathers came to South Africa, I think we were about 95% Hindus. And I stand to be corrected, I think we are about 35%. What are we going to do to change that? Because our youth do not know our Sanafi Dharma. The atheism, agnostics are increasing or they're converting. So we really need attention to that. And my second question is, with BEE and employment equity, we need to help Hindu businesses. You may be aware that there's a directory of Muslim businesses. Why aren't we doing something similar to help our Hindu businesses? Thank you.
Thank you for that input. Very, very important. You know this thing of 1860, and when we came here through the seas, the rough seas. It's true. The majority of our forefathers were Hindu, and over a period of time, the statistics may be correct. It's 35%. It pains one when one looks at that erosion of what we were and what has happened in our own families, myself included. It's very, very painful. So I think it's a very good point that you make. And this is one of the reasons why we're here. We heard Vresh talk about the schools. I know that there's a science school in Reservoir Hills, there's one in Chatsworth, I think. But we don't have Hindu schools like the Muslim schools, the Jewish schools, the German schools. When we talk about being sectional, but if that education, which starts in the mother's womb, in the home, and then of course the schooling system, through our Hindu spiritualism, philosophy, all of that going together, I'm not going to talk about the religious side, Guru, because you guys are the experts on it. But it's one of the things that we've got to look at. Like you talk about one of the things, looking at Hindu businesses, Hindu sport, in the fabric of South African society. So it's a very, very good book. Any other speakers? Mr. Singh Kapoor, Mr. Singh, from my hometown. I'm sure it's going to be about Samra. No?
Namaste, everybody. I'm not speaking as a magistrate. After 36 years, I'm not in court. Vanakkam, namaste. There's a lot to be said. There's many people to greet, many VIPs, and many of us ordinary people. But Glenn, who is Glenn, the security man? Glenn, nice to see you for the second time. Of all the people that need to be recognized, I'm recognizing you and I'm thanking you for what you did in Phoenix. Lots of people talk and what's about us. Thank you for what you did in Phoenix. Now, I know I'm not like, so I'm never on the mic and I force my way to speak, and that's how I will always be. I don't apologize for being a Hindu. I am a South African. I didn't forget I'm a South African, a patriotic, loyal South African. It's an African government that we elected that has now excluded Indians, not today. This employment equity didn't come yesterday. It started 20 years ago. In fact, prior to 1994, there was an agreement that whites would be given 7.5% quota, coloreds 5.5%, and Indians 2%, which means Indians get 2% of every 100 jobs, one for male, one for female. So it started then. Nelson Mandela, in one of his famous speeches, which I have, and I have limited time, said, beware of the Indians in our armed struggle. They are very clever, they're intellectuals, they might take over the struggle. I had the privilege to meet him a few times, not to speak much. I meet Jacob Zuma often. I told him, and I tell him even now, this is wrong. They all agree things went very wrong. But when an African government gave white people 7.5% quota, who own 80% of the business, they knew what they were doing. They excluded Indian intellectuals who are patriotic, who are religious, and who have a spiritual-based approach to their work and to the country. Indians are amongst the most patriotic people we know because they serve their country and they are serving God by doing their work. And what do we have now? We have Indian collaborators, and I'm not pointing fingers or saying anything to anybody here. We have Indian collaborators who belong to institutions where they exclude Indians and they expect to be respected. We have Indian collaborators, all amongst us, who see Indian children being excluded but never raise these facts. Now it will come down to why people don't like. When I really don't care. Right? I'm the good guy, the non-drinker, the non-smoker, the vegetarian. I get angry with Indian girls for drinking and smoking, and Indian women, because I'm old-fashioned. But the fact of the matter is, 12 years ago, we started an equality movement as a human rights organization. So we went Hindu, Tamil, Christian, Muslim, we went minority rights, equality movement, so we brought everybody on board. Didn't work. 12 years later, the organization's founders have died because the famous people, Bab Singh Prasad, former SAFA member, and also ANC member, my father, A.K. Singh, all were ANC people. There were many others who I can't mention because of time. But they said 12 years ago, ANC has sold us out. Squatters have invaded every middle-class Indian area. People built houses they paid for 20 years, surrounded by squatters. How is playing football with African people going to solve this problem, really? I'm not belittling the conversation. How? Social cohesion starts with the governing party. And when you exclude people, where's the social cohesion? When it's time for votes. Now, it's very simple. That Equity Act must go, and the Indian government, Russian government, Chinese government, BRICS must take these issues up at an international level. The country is collapsed. And correct, the last speaker said, now that Eskom's in darkness, and the country has been identified as a failed state, Malema's first words were what? Indians, then whites and colors must come and fix it. Indians can't fix it for free. A collapsed state. So what, you're going to put Indians in the entire police force? We have 77 murders a day. We have social unrest. You're going to put Indians in all the schools. It's never going to work. We're going to start making Indians doctors. The government is currently sued for 35 billion for medical malpractice because not one of the students who accepted on the basis of race and transformation make the grade on merit. So the discrimination is not just on Indians, it's discrimination based on merit, because it's the only country in the world where you expect a country to run and compete with other countries where not a single person is appointed on merit. Right? All we're saying is appointed on merit. What's wrong with that? And when I ask the lecturers and the people at university, no, there'll be too many Indian doctors. That's the case in America. It's the case in Britain. It's not a problem because you want the best doctors to treat your children, your mothers, your fathers, and people who are dying. Here, no, we don't want it. And that's just one symptom of this problem we have. Right? Now, let's talk about having a Hindu organization. A proper Hindu. What's wrong with that? There's Muslim organizations. Now, the most I've learned came from Muslim brothers. They meet regularly. At a mosque, they fill a mosque more than this meeting we're having here. When there was unrest, it were the Muslim people who brought food from Johannesburg and fed all the Indians in Pietermaritzburg. When it was the corona problem, it was Muslims who brought ivermectin and gave it out for free. Then I found out about ivermectin and we got it from Muslims and gave it out for free. When a Muslim person's house is burned, the entire community fixes it the next day. Correct? We must learn from others. They have unity, they have pride. Where's our pride? Girls who are drinking in full view of public with their parents, men who are drunk all the time, people who don't pray, people who have no respect. 100 temples being built. Little wonder we can't fund them. Who needs 100 temples? What, 5 people each so they are famous and important at their temple? The traffic is nice, but it doesn't change where we are. So we got Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Food for Life, everybody cooks, and they get their photos in the papers. And then we have Gift of the Givers, where everybody puts things together, and we have the most powerful humanitarian organization in the world, which is essentially a Muslim organization, and hats off to them. Because the water comes from them, the food comes from them, the balls come from them, the schools are proper. So we should learn from them and not compete with them, and not be ashamed of being Hindu. So why is there need for 10 or 20 different organizations to do the humanitarian work? Because they can't get together. And that's the first problem. When there was unrest, and I'll mention them, and I contacted them and said I'd like to speak to them. Because the Hindu Mahasabha, they gave R1 million to the President's Fund, while Hindu people were starving. And squatters attacked mostly Hindu people around the community and within your religion. You don't badmouth people in public. They refuse to be. I then posted on their Facebook. Discuss robust against people trying before 2024 to create new groupings going off, and Hindus was working with me. So they heard what happened. 2 dissenting judges who were not African agreed with what we said, but they refused to give us a hearing. You know what the rest of the unrest started. What happened? Mr. Singh is, but what did the government say? The government says we didn't know this unrest coming, we never knew. And the looting carried on for 4 days. Government has lost over 100 billion, and Ukraine recently admitted they lost foreign investment. The unrest cost 60 billion. Who's to Phoenix? They took it. But by the way, everybody there has been acquitted, although 1 and 2.
Just now, soon to round this up. I think the general consensus seems that the man of the Hindu community, there must be some political direction given. The speaker, Yogi, I know you are here. I want to give you the floor, and then I want to hear from somebody from the youth. Finally, we will then do the introduction, and we'll then take the input from the embassy. Okay, come through.
Members of the committee. Firstly, let me say thank you to Pranil and the team for getting people together. I must apologize, I arrived late. I was in a meeting with Praveen Gordon and Mark Miraj on some of the... There's nothing how they use, it doesn't have to be a political party, but we've seen how they... And something that you must reflect on, and we as the Hindu community need to find a single Hindu. So you need that voice. Like other communities have that voice, you need to make an impact on the government because you have to negotiate with those that are in power. It's a subject that we have to just now. So We've seen what has transpired in the political landscape over the last couple of years. And being very honest, as a member of the ANC, we've seen how the organization has moved more towards an Africanist tendency. We've seen in recent times representation, whether it's a provincial executive committee in KZN or the national executive committee at the national level of the ANC. We've seen since the Mandela era that Seelan actually spoke about to now. So I think it's therefore important to have that voice. Now, recently we saw people like Ravi Pillai, Maggie Governor being excluded from that important provincial ANC organ. And likewise, we saw how a Muslim female from KZN gets into the National Executive Committee of the ANC, something that we never expected, never thought about, but obviously there was some behind the scenes negotiations and love. So I've made the point about the powerful role that a Hindu forum can be, even as a extra parliamentary movement, echoing the sentiments and the views of our community. Now, for me, the big concern is about, creating a political movement requires a lot of hard work. It's about mobilizing people, it's about building an organization. And I would like to suggest the ground is ripe for us to develop a strong civic movement in the country. There are so many issues that affect communities today, from water, electricity, sanitation, rates hikes, and property charges, and all of it. This goes on. And I think that we can build a powerful UDF type of front to take up the issues rather than letting these councils railroading some of the issues. I've been a member of the council, and I think up to 2016, we had a reasonable level of service in Etiquette. We had 8 billion rand in reserves, a AA credit rating, and today our metro is now under Section 154 intervention by the National Minister. That means he sent in a team of 4 people to oversee the city. The things are so bad. The next step, if that doesn't work, is the city will be put under administration. And that must be a concern to all of us who are stakeholders in this region or in this province as such. So, with what we had, a replacement of good, competent people at all spheres of government, replaced sometimes with, whether it's factionalism, cronyism, or the issue of race, we've seen the impact it has had on the functioning of this government organs. It has impacted all of our lives. So, having said that about creating this UDF broad front, and you'll find that people respond to the bread and butter issues, grassroots issues that affect communities. Now come the elections next year, reading the reports that we are getting and the surveys that have been done, there seems a likelihood that there's going to be an alliance between, if the DA and the IFP do an alliance in case of them, what's going to happen nationally is going to be an ANC-EFF alliance. And that doesn't augur well for the country. We can't have a Julius Malema as a vice president of South Africa. So, we need to make our voices heard. Oh, just by the way, this week, in our provincial legislature, in KZN, a member of the EFF stood up, pointed his finger at Maggie Governor, the ANC MPL, and said, "You're a racist Indian from Phoenix," in the provincial parliament. And later on, the very same member stood up and said, "These racist Indians from Chatsworth must be dealt with." Now, this is the language spoken by a political party. And why I think that we must make sure that SAMRAM plays its role, other organizations play their role, not necessarily take up issues, but bring some great community work. Why we need the powerful voice to make sure that we secure the future of our community, we promote the concept of non-racialism that's entrenched in our constitution, that's in the Freedom Charter, and it's the principle on which the ANC said it lives on. So it's a principle, irrespective of demographic representation, is a principle you adhere to, building a non-racial South Africa. Therefore, the Employment Equity Act doesn't make sense, because there's no congruence between the skills available with the population groups. We've got a long way to go to develop skilled people so that we can say that in Etegwedi we're 17% Indian, and therefore they're only entitled to that percentage. Or in KZN that we are 7%, that is the percentage opportunities available to Indians. Or it is 2% nationally. There is no correlation, no link between that. The Employment Equity Act was intended to transform society from the apartheid past. It was not to entrench racial demographics. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Logi, for that. I think, broadly speaking, then many of the speakers have spoken to each one of us. Is there somebody from the youth here that wants to say something? Okay, all right. Okay. No. Come. Right. After Ryan, Dash, you need to give us a summary of what's happening. Come and introduce a speaker from the MC, and then, of course, Dash will come forward. Thanks a lot.
The people sitting here, I think you have done a fantastic job in getting people together. It hasn't been over 1 or 2 months. It looks like it's been going on for well over a year. So I think give the guys a round of applause. So I'm not exactly a youth. I know the cutoff is about 35. I'm a little beyond that. But from, my perspective, my dad's a big ANC supporter. Obviously, a little despondent at the moment, given the current political affairs in the country. But from my perspective, I've been fortunate to have experienced the rights, and I say fortunate because you then realize what the country is actually going through, and you realize what the youth have to face. So a lot of us here are on the older side, and we're all here just to make things better for ourselves, but more importantly, it's going to be better for our children. And it's not going to happen if we don't stand together. So we've got 750 votes, 750,000 votes. We can choose to split it amongst people that are essentially going to use your numbers only, or we can choose to have one voice. So we need to speak with one voice. That's a difference. It needs to happen. So we need to make a decision as to who we're going to give those votes to, and we need to make sure that there is one voice. And our demands, we can say demands, it has to be met because we need to make sure that what we want is known to these guys. The other thing is, we need to realize that people are saying is that this is our country as well. We were born here. There's not only heritage from 1860, there's heritage from 400 years ago when you were brought here as slaves. There's also heritage from earlier than that, maybe 1,000 years or so, where there's evidence of temples and the likes. So you are as much as part of this land than anybody else. So you guys need to remember that. From the youth side, we need to get involved. Yes, we need to get involved in politics. We're not getting involved in politics. The guys, the kids have been getting into business, looking at high-end jobs. I myself and the wife have looked at what's going to happen to our kids if we don't stand together. And we took a decision that we were going to send them overseas once they got to the age that they can go. And then you ask yourself, why do we need to do that? This is our country. They should be studying here, and they should be getting jobs here, and they should be dying here. They don't need to go anywhere else in the world. And like I said before, and I want to scare you guys a little bit, and made you make a decision. You are either going to be to make a decision. You are either going to die or you're going to kill somebody for your families. So before it gets to that stage again, so it happened in 1949. Does anyone know that it happened also in 19? It's happened again. So it's every 30 to 35 years. So don't give it another 30 to 35 years to happen again. Make sure we all get together and make a stand. I'm willing to fight. What I've seen is that if we all just be quiet and accept things at face value, we're going to be taken for granted and we will have to fight again in another 35 years, if not sooner. So we've got to stand up for ourselves. So that's why from the youth perspective, maybe at university level, get them into the SRC. At the moment, the EFF is just flattening everybody. And that's where the narrative is starting, from the educated side. So they're educating the guys that are getting out now into business, and they are creating a racist narrative. So make sure we get out there, get your kids involved in politics, push them. As a unified bunch of people, we can make a difference, not as a single person. So that's it from my side as part of the younger generation. Where you'll need support, we'll give you all the support.
Thanks, Sarai. Just a confession, that's my elder son. I just wanted to call him up because his dad was speaking. But that's not true. I think he's just concerned about a couple of things. One of the things he didn't say was the education of our youth. And he touched on the university thing, which is important. But thanks, Sarai, for that.
I think here from the consulate about the OCI and finding our roots, it is very, very important as well. But we must not leave this auditorium to be on the political side, the business side, and various other groups that we have. These are very, very important. We are not going to be able to pack our bags and leave here from tomorrow. We are here to stay. It is our home. But let's look at what's the scenario currently and what's going to be. It will be selfish upon us to think that we can pack up and go. And that's impossible. If you see those who are less fortunate and who can't stand up, we need to get regulations that are coming through to assist us further.
For facilitation of OCI and to guide the people of Indian origin about how to get the OCI for their wellness. OCI is basically for the citizens of Indian origin for education if they have any problem getting the OCI. Now we tell sir how to apply for the OCI. What is the eligibility? But was a citizen of India. The Indian government used to give PIO to our persons of Indian origin, but that was for a limited period of time. Now the PIO has been changed and the OCI is now given to the Indian of a citizen of India or his spouse. If one has got OCI, the spouse can apply for the OCI on the basis of his husband or wife. Moreover, all the can get their PIO card changed to the OCI. I think it's clear for what is the eligibility. Side photograph. Get the most difficult thing to get here. On every birth certificate of parents, and we make a chart list. Who came first, and after that, who are the children, and then the grandchildren. If you have not got the unabridged birth certificate, we can go by the death certificate also, in which the name of the great grandparents are mentioned. So that
we were offered to stay back here. And when he was going back to India, he was very ill and died in the shop.
Sir, this is
I did assist there.
Okay, you can come to consulate and we will check how to help you. Yes, ma'am, please.
I've been applying for my OCI for the last 5-6 years, and every time they send me back, not allowing that because my mother and father is deceased. Home Affairs said.
Our comment from the Indian government side that everything should be clarified before processing of the application. If we are unable to get it from South Africa,
but my husband got it.
Yes, ma'am?
My husband, my
Then there are two options for you also. In a general phenomena, it's one-to-one going on. Don't worry. If anybody like this case comes, you can apply for the sponsor category also. On the basis of your husband. So I will see later. See, I am already here to tell about the OCI, how to apply for that. If everybody
Can I just suggest something? We met for 2 hours at the consulate, and the CG did say the doors are open, no problem. Because they said that the doors are open, which is true, right? Let's.
If any husband or wife has got the OCI, they can also apply on the basis of this project category. But there is the one problem, and the OCI is can say marriage certificate, it's okay, proof of residence. There is one clause, all original documents must have been attested, and we see the self-attested copies also. The documents required vary from case to case. Like madam, you have to go 6 times you came to the consulate. I have sympathy with you also, not to worry. Actually, I made a CD for people can buy the portal, but since there is no facility, I will give a copy of Mr. Pranit Singh so that you can get a copy and then give to everybody. And I think everybody knows about the family tree. No. Then you have to give a copy, you can check, sir. How? See, I got the tell you about the family tree. Like, okay, I will try to explain. If somebody's great-grandfather came by the ship or by the air, he was the original ship list. And then after the original ship list, the name of the father along with the child is number 2. That, okay, the great-grandfather name was X and Mr. Y was born out of him. Then after Mr. Y, Mr. Z came into existence on every birth certificate. And then Mr. A out of Mr. Z. Till 4th generation we give the OCI in South Africa. We have also written a letter requesting for this 6th generation, but we have not been given any clearance from the ministry. Though we are trying hard. Payments part, I think most of people will know only how to make the payment at the consulate through electronic fund transfer. For fresh OCI application, it's about 4135 francs. A little amount.
Too much.
Too much.
It'll be free.
4,135. Okay, I will give a copy to the organizing committee, they will circulate to you. 4135. Stage, it is found that registration as an OCI was obtained by means of fraud, fake, so this affection towards the Indian Constitution, the registration of the such person gets automatically cancelled. A lot of cases have come back. Now, the most important thing, what are the benefits of OCI? Go to India, property and can hold investments. You can engage yourself in some restrictions also again. An OCI card holder cannot purchase agricultural land, they cannot vote, they can't contest assembly elections, any elections, they can't hold a government post also. Okay, if they want to go to, am I finished?
Researchers have indicated we do have a committee already set up to deal with this.
What happens to their children?
Ma'am, if the 4th generation child has got OCI, then they have not given permission for the 5th generation. Madam, we have written to the minister.
Okay, can you just say something on that? That's been looked into Mauritians big time, and I think in the future also, if you have a problem, they explicitly said they.
I can ask a question. Just take the question there. the original papers is incorrectly stated, whereby they say that his dad was born in South Africa. Obviously, he came with his parents, who was taught the slave trade, and he was a year old when he got here, which process like a ping-pong mission for us, because obviously the Home Affairs can't supply us with the right documents. It takes forever. My mom, who is 75 years old, they can't even provide us with her unoriginal certificate. So the OCI requires these documents. Our Home Affairs cannot give it to us. Where do we stand on an issue like that?
Okay. That's one. My main concern is that the service at the Indian Consulate in Durban,
I think there's going to be a big role in the consulate. You brought us here.
For the OCI in the multi-purpose hall. If anybody has multi-purpose hall, we have had OCI camp. If anybody has multi-purpose hall, we have had OCI camp there. Anybody who has got anything problem, they come to the consulate.
Can we hold the consulate? That they're going to address our issues, right? I think we can have several seminars out there, and we wouldn't seminars out there, and we wouldn't allow. It's called an engineering situation. Okay, let me hand you over to.
Thanks, Bernie. Thank you for the discussion and Oja, you've listened very carefully. There have been many protests during Mahatma
to ask ourselves a question. Because I want somebody to show me where is the Singh and the Maharaj and the Mudli and the Naidu with the double O and the Naidu with the U in the Vedas. That is why we are weak and poor. It's something that irks me on a regular. And we can thank you and tell us, hey, that was a bread, or hey, this was tell our family and our children and everybody around us. What did Gandhiji say? Be that change. So I'm going to move on here very, very. First important item is in the data. Every businessman knows this, every young student knows the address, and moving forward. Let's set up an interim committee app. We live in a technological world. Even 80-year-old grannies nowadays know how to use WhatsApp and apps and so on. One app where you load your details, we have all the data of everybody in one place. We don't run 50 WhatsApp groups and we're not sure whether it was posted on this group, on that group, and so on and so on. And we disseminate information to each other in such a simple manner. Right? Our future is our youth. If every single one of us did not bring our child here, our fault. If you're feeling attacked right now, I apologize, but take that home, let it filter. Right? Are you ready? Are we as Indians ready to march? We've spoken about a whole load. Every single speaker made brilliant points. But what now? We just enjoy a nice sponsored lunch and go home and nothing actually happens in your home or your home or your home or your home. The world is crying out for good, strong, succinct leadership. Let's give it to them via this organization. Let's work on what Pranil and the others have set up. Run it professionally so it's not run like so many similar organizations. And I'm not slamming any other organization. I am saying we need to take the learnings and grow that next step and that next step. Our consulate is only what we allow them to be. They're the Indian consulate representing us. We must tell them what they should be. And we have allowed 10 out of 10, brother. 10 out of 10. You know what I saw by here? Why are we not leveraging? So is everybody willing to get onto an app and start with 50 rand or $100? The numbers multiply very quickly. Or we have to nobody, zero of anybody that sits on the initial committee to still be on the committee in 5 years' time. That's a progress of the way you want me to serve, but I'm just speaking from the heart. I wasn't having that as we want. It's not going to make any change.
People to put your hands up, volunteer, and can somebody take the next one? That's what you're doing. You're writing the name of the book.
You know what? If anybody has any speciality or anybody can assist in any way,
Given your names, don't leave the table here. Your names are recognized with your steering committee members, and who's going to take this process forward. So just be patient.
So next week Sunday, 11 o'clock here.